the Lamborghini Revuelto. Now, in my honest opinion, that car should be considered a hypercar. I mean, just looking at the specs alone, that car's insane. And it's expensive. Don't get me wrong, but hypercar is expensive apparently, so it doesn't count. But yeah, look, the car has the iconic V12 engine from the Lamborghini Aventador, which was screaming and loud and violent, which even loud. And they managed to add a hybrid powertrain to it, and then they combine it, creates 1,000 horsepower. Now this is a 1,000 horsepower Lambo. Why wouldn't it be a hypercar? I mean, that power more than qualifies it to be in the hypercar territory. It has all the specs for a hypercar. It has a look of a hypercar. And don't get me wrong, it seems a little tame now, but that's because they're probably planning on making SVS and SVJ versions like they did with the Aventador. And by the time the SVJ comes out, it would be insane. It would be a true hypercar, looking at least. But yeah, this thing should have been a hypercar. It should be classified as a hypercar. I mean, sure, it would be a cheaper hypercar, but it's great. I don't see any flaws with that car. And apparently it's really livable. Looks great, it's livable, it's super powerful. And any issues that the Aventador had, this thing fixes. It has a dual clutch now, so the jerkiness between gear changes is gone. It's all smoothed out, and it still has the screaming V12 sound. Now they retuned the engine, I think. Now I don't know exactly how much power the V12 engine makes. I think it's around 800 or something, 810 or something. And the rest is the electric motors, but yeah, combined it makes over 1,000 horsepower. And with the hybrid powertrain, there's obviously no lag and no gap between power. It would just fly off. But it's still not considered a hypercar. I don't know why. I don't know why there's a new class of cars that apparently have hypercar specs and are really expensive but are no longer hypercars. And it's the same thing with the SF90. It's basically a hypercar, but Ferrari didn't call it a hypercar, so it's not a hypercar. Now, that car obviously has a lot of other issues. Other issues like people are loving the car that much because the looks and all that, and there's a lot of them. Those are the different set of problems, but yeah, that should be a hypercar too. So why isn't the Revuelto a hypercar? I mean, are we just changing the goalpost of what a hypercar should be? Does it have to be now over 1,000? Should be 1,500 or 2,000? Does it need some crazy stuff in there? I don't know what the criteria is, because honestly, when you compare the Revuelto to the previous holy trinity of hypercars from Ferrari, McLaren and Porsche, this meets all the criteria. I mean, there's nothing this thing's falling behind. The design's great. It has a powerful V12 engine. It has electric motors. It's a hybrid. And the interior is really well done. I mean, yes, this car, they are going to make a lot of these cars. Maybe that's the issue. I guess maybe hypercars had to be in limited production for them to consider hypercars. Or just plain expensive to consider hypercars, because I think this thing costs around $700,000 or something. 600 or 700. But honestly, it should have been classified as a hypercar. Just look at that thing. Just you look at it, and if you tell someone who doesn't know that it's a hypercar, they won't have any trouble believing it. The front looks fantastic. Now the sides and the back look a little more tamer, but that's probably because it doesn't have that much aero bits. Now that's all going to be coming in the next iterations of the model. And yeah, I don't know why no one considers this. I mean, everyone loves the car. There's no issue with the car at all, and their values seem to be holding apparently. Everyone wants one. Everyone who can get one is getting one. It's daily usable. I mean, it has a hybrid powertrain. So yeah, I don't know why. Seems like a waste not to call it a hypercar and just keep in supercar territory. I mean, not that the Aventador wasn't great, but you know that wasn't on the hypercar level yet. But this thing is, obviously, but it's not being considered. Maybe if they managed to push out 200 more horsepower from it, they could have called it a hypercar. But I guess then they wouldn't be able to. Them making mass market, but a lot of them wouldn't make sense, because if you make too many of them, then people won't consider it as that valuable, because hypercars are limited productions. That's what makes them so valuable. So because only a few people can have them, and their values keep going up. But yeah, this is my opinion on the Lamborghini Revuelto.